The rain was coming down in sheets as I stared out the window of my Seattle apartment. I am Caspian, 44, and until a few weeks ago I thought I had it all. A loving wife, a comfortable life as a software developer, and a beautiful home overlooking the Puget Sound. My life was meticulously crafted, every detail attended to with the precision of someone who appreciated order. But like a house of cards, it all came crashing down. It started subtly. My wife, Juniper, a talented graphic designer, began working late more often. A big project, she'd say, her eyes a little too bright, her smile a little too forced. I didn't suspect anything at first. Juniper was always dedicated to her work. We'd been together for 15 years, married for 10, and trust was the bedrock of our relationship, or so I thought. Then came the phone calls. Late at night when she thought I was asleep. Whispered conversations, quickly cut short when I stirred. "Wrong number," she'd mumble, turning away. My gut started churning. I tried to dismiss it, to tell myself I was being paranoid, but the feeling wouldn't go away. It festered, a knot of anxiety tightening in my chest. One evening, Juniper claimed she had a client dinner and wouldn't be home until late. I kissed her goodbye, the scent of her perfume, a new, unfamiliar fragrance lingering in the air. As soon as she left, I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I decided to do something I never thought I'd do. I decided to check her phone. I knew her password, a combination of our anniversary and our dog's birthday. My hands trembled as I unlocked it. My eyes darted across the screen, landing on a messaging app I didn't recognize. Signal. I downloaded it onto my own phone, using her number to log in, praying I was wrong. The messages were there. A torrent of them exchanged over the past few months, passionate, explicit, and undeniably intimate. They were from someone named Silas. My blood ran cold as I scrolled through them, each word a hammer blow to my heart. Juniper was having an affair, and not just a casual fling. These messages spoke of deep affection, of a future together. I sank into a chair, the phone slipping from my grasp. The room seemed to spin around me. The woman I loved, the woman I had built my life with, had betrayed me in the most profound way imaginable. I spent the rest of the night in a daze, replaying the messages in my head, trying to make sense of it all. Who was Silas? How could Juniper do this to me? The next morning, Juniper came home, her face flushed, her eyes bright. "How was the dinner?" I asked, my voice flat. She launched into a detailed account of the evening, mentioning names and places I didn't recognize. I listened in silence, the weight of her lies crushing me. "Juniper," I said when she finally finished, "I know about Silas." Her face paled. She stared at me, her eyes wide with panic. What are you talking about?" she stammered. I held up my phone, the screen displaying one of her messages. Her carefully constructed facade crumbled. Tears streamed down her face as she confessed everything. She had met Silas at a design conference in Portland. He was a charismatic architect, full of grand ideas and promises. She claimed it had started as a harmless flirtation, but it had quickly escalated into something more. She said she loved me, that she never meant to hurt me, but she was swept away. I didn't say anything. I just stared at her, the pain in my chest almost unbearable. "I need you to leave," I finally managed to say. "I need you to leave now." She begged me to reconsider, to give her another chance, but I couldn't. The trust was gone. The foundation of our relationship had been shattered. I couldn't imagine ever looking at her the same way again. Juniper packed a bag and left, the sound of the door slamming echoing through the empty apartment. I was alone. Utterly, devastatingly alone. Over the next few weeks I spiraled. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. I spent my days staring at the walls, replaying the events in my head, trying to understand what I had done wrong. I knew I wasn't perfect, but I had always been loyal, always been supportive. How could she do this to me? My friends, Torin and Ansel, tried to help. They took me out for drinks, tried to distract me, but nothing worked. The pain was too deep, too raw. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of grief and betrayal. One day, Ansel suggested I hire a private investigator. "Find out who this Silas guy is," he said. "Maybe knowing the truth will help you move on." I hesitated. I wasn't sure I wanted to know more, but the curiosity gnawed at me. I needed to understand. I needed to know who this man was who had stolen my wife, my life. I hired a local investigator named Bennett. He was a gruff, no-nonsense guy with a sharp eye for detail. I gave him everything I knew about Silas, his name, his profession, the city where Juniper had met him. A week later, Bennett called me with some information. Silas Vance, he said. Architect, married, 2 kids. I felt a surge of anger course through me. He was married, he had a family. He was just like Juniper, a liar, a cheat, a betrayer, Bennett continued. His firm is under investigation for some shady dealings, allegations of fraud, embezzlement. He's not exactly a stand-up guy. I thanked Bennett and hung up the phone. I sat there for a long time processing the information. Silas was a fraud both professionally and personally. He had seduced my wife and jeopardized his own family, all for his own selfish desires. I decided I needed to confront him. I needed to look him in the eye and tell him what he had done. I found his address online and booked a flight to Portland. The flight was a blur. I was fueled by a mixture of anger and adrenaline. I arrived in Portland late in the afternoon and took a taxi to Silas's house. It was a large, modern home in an affluent neighborhood. I rang the doorbell, my heart pounding in my chest. Silas answered the door. He was a handsome man with a confident smile and piercing blue eyes. He looked surprised to see me. Caspian, he said, his voice betraying a hint of nervousness. What are you doing here? I'm here to talk to you about Juniper, I said, my voice trembling with rage. He hesitated for a moment, then stepped aside. Come in, he said. I walked into his house, my eyes scanning the room. It was filled with expensive furniture and stylish decorations. Pictures of Silas, his wife, and his children adorned the walls. The hypocrisy was staggering. I know about the affair, I said, cutting to the chase. I know everything, Silas sighed. Look, Caspian, I'm sorry, he said. It just happened. I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt. You didn't mean for anyone to get hurt, I repeated, my voice rising. You seduced my wife, you destroyed my marriage, and you didn't mean for anyone to get hurt. What kind of person are you? He didn't answer. He just stood there looking ashamed. Juniper told me you were a charismatic, successful architect, I continued. But Bennett told me the truth. You're a fraud, a liar, a cheat. You're under investigation for fraud and embezzlement. You're going to lose everything. Silas's face turned pale. How did you find out about that? He asked. It doesn't matter, I said. What matters is that you're going to pay for what you've done. You're going to lose your wife, your kids, your career. You're going to lose everything. I turned and walked out of his house, leaving him standing there in stunned silence. I felt a sense of satisfaction, but it was fleeting. I knew that Silas's downfall wouldn't bring Juniper back, wouldn't undo the pain she had caused. But it was something. I returned to Seattle, my mind still reeling from the confrontation. I knew that my life would never be the same. The woman I had loved was gone, replaced by a stranger I didn't recognize. The life I had built had been shattered, leaving me to pick up the pieces. I threw myself into my work, spending long hours at the office trying to forget about Juniper. But it was no use. Everywhere I looked, I saw reminders of her. Her favorite coffee mug, her collection of art books, the photos on the walls. I couldn't escape her ghost. One evening, I was working late when I received a call from an unfamiliar number. I hesitated for a moment, then answered it. Hello, I said. Caspian, it's Juniper, the voice on the other end said. I need your help. My heart sank. I didn't want to talk to her. I didn't want to hear her excuses, her apologies, but something in her voice told me that this was different. This was serious. What's wrong? I asked, my voice cold. Silas is in trouble, she said. The investigation, it's getting serious. He's going to be arrested, and I'm involved. I felt a surge of anger. You're involved, I repeated. How are you involved? She explained that Silas had used her design company to launder some of the stolen money. She claimed she didn't know what he was doing, that she was just following his instructions. But I didn't believe her. She was a smart woman. She must have known something was wrong. I need you to help me, Caspian, she said. I need you to help me clear my name. I hesitated. I didn't owe Juniper anything. She had betrayed me. She had lied to me. She had destroyed my life. But I couldn't bring myself to leave her in the lurch. Despite everything, I still cared about her, and I knew that if she was convicted of a crime, her life would be ruined. I'll see what I can do, I said, my voice grudging. I contacted Bennett, the private investigator, and asked him to look into Juniper's involvement in Silas's scheme. He was reluctant at first, but I convinced him that it was the right thing to do. Bennett spent several days investigating, interviewing witnesses, and reviewing documents. He discovered that Juniper had indeed unwittingly been involved in the money laundering scheme. She hadn't known the full extent of Silas's fraud, but she had suspected something was wrong. She had turned a blind eye, hoping that it would all go away. Bennett presented his findings to the authorities, arguing that Juniper was a victim of Silas's manipulation. The authorities were skeptical at first, but Bennett's evidence was compelling. Eventually, they agreed to drop the charges against Juniper in exchange for her cooperation in the investigation. Silas was arrested and charged with multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. He faced a long prison sentence. His wife divorced him, taking their children with her. He lost everything, just as I had predicted. Juniper was spared from prison, but her reputation was ruined. Her design company went bankrupt and she was ostracized by her friends and colleagues. She was forced to move back in with her parents, her life in shambles. I didn't feel any satisfaction in Juniper's downfall. I didn't want her to suffer. I just wanted her to understand the pain she had caused me. I wanted her to realize the consequences of her actions. One day, Juniper called me and asked if we could meet. I hesitated for a moment, then agreed. We met at a small coffee shop near my apartment. She looked tired and worn, her eyes filled with regret. "I'm sorry, Caspian," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm so sorry for everything I've done. I know I've hurt you deeply. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope that one day you can find it in your heart to forgive me." I looked at her, my heart aching with a mixture of pain and pity. I knew that she was genuinely sorry. I knew that she had learned her lesson. But I also knew that I could never forget what she had done. The trust was gone. The love was gone. There was nothing left. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Juniper," I said, my voice flat. "But I hope that one day you can forgive yourself." I stood up and walked out of the coffee shop, leaving her sitting there alone. I didn't look back. I knew that it was the last time I would ever see her. I never remarried. I never had children. I focused on my work, on my friends, on building a new life for myself. It wasn't the life I had imagined, but it was mine, and I was determined to make the best of it. The rain still falls in Seattle, but it doesn't bother me as much anymore. I've learned to accept the storms, to weather the challenges, to find the beauty in the darkness. I've learned that life is unpredictable, that betrayal is inevitable, but that hope is always possible, and that in the end is all that matters.